The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to the webinar titled BPM for Banking, a journey towards operational excellence, centralization, automation, and beyond, jointly presented by Newgen Software and Union Bank of Nigeria. I thank you all for the overwhelming response we have obtained for the webinar. I am Darpan and shall be your host and moderator for this webinar today. Today we have with us Mr. Bhumi Olufeko, who is Head of Service Assurance at Union Bank of Nigeria, and Mr. Bindesh Pandey, who is Regional Head of Africa at Newgen Software. Bindesh will share the valuable insights on ingredients of a successful back office automation from technology and functional standpoint. And then Bhumi will talk about Union Bank's transformation journey, wherein he'll discuss how the bank is delivering superior customer experience with Newgen. At the end of the presentation, we will be having a question and answer session. We request you to type your questions in the question window of your GoToMeeting anytime during the webinar, and I shall take them up at the end of the session with our experts. With that, I hand it over to you, Bindesh.
Darpan, am I audible?
Yes.
Great. So thanks, Darpan, for the introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to people attending this webinar, depending on the location you have joined us from. In my presentation, I will talk about banking in general, how banking has evolved, and more specifically, process automation in banking, how banks have evolved and how their operating models have evolved, what role has been played by BPM in this journey and these ever-evolving operating models. I will take up some case studies and then would finally hand it over to Bhumi, who would then share his own experiences of undertaking a similar project, and we can all sort of learn from that. We would obviously appreciate if you have any questions, we would be happy to answer that. So as we all know, banks have existed for a long time now, and over a period, obviously, banks have changed hugely. The way we know banks today, and perhaps when banking actually started, there has been sea of change, and no surprises, obviously, given the kind of advancements the world at large has made in terms of technology and all of us, the way humanity in general has evolved. Besides banks changing, the way we do banking has also changed dramatically, from those paper-based ledgers, those paper-based term deposit documents, to now access to our balances with just a click of button on our smartwatches. So the way we as customers interface with banks, that has also changed significantly. The tools which banks use, the technology which the banks use, has also undergone dramatic shift. So for instance, on the slide, I have put a picture of how the technology has evolved. So from those early days of punch card machines to today, when we are talking about blockchain in banking, the distributed ledger and so on, artificial intelligence is being talked about, machine learning is being talked about, RPA continues to be a buzzword. So technology obviously has changed a lot. The way it is used in banking has changed a lot. However, the fast-paced change has also ended up creating a lot of legacy and consequently a lot of chaos. And in my view, the chaos is also due to the fact that all of us in banking have taken a problem-based approach of our initiatives as far as technology was concerned. So we had a problem, that problem was identified, and we thought, okay, this needs a technology intervention. That problem was solved, and we moved on to the next problem, and so on. Perhaps a long-term vision was lacking. Partly the vision was lacking, partly the technology itself was lacking. But at the end of it all, a huge complexity was created. There were a lot of silos which got created. And just to sort of put it in context, we can take an example of a very common process, account opening, for example. So now in account opening, if you look at in these days, what would be the typical systems involved? We would have core banking, we would have our internet banking, our mobile banking, the sanction systems, the AML systems, FATCA check system, world check systems. We have a lot of actors involved in the process, the customer themselves, the front office, the back office operations, internal control teams, the compliance teams. So how do we monitor all of them? How all these players are connected, the people, the processes, the systems, and these days even the things, we are talking about smartwatch banking. So even in a common process, how do we really monitor it across channels, across processes, across systems? So to solve this problem of visibility and to also gain operational efficiency as they scale, banks moved to the concept of centralized back offices. So this started somewhere mid-90s, and then obviously various banks, depending on their own maturity levels, have adopted it. What were the ingredients which banks used for this? So you typically had imaging systems which would help convert paper into digital images. You would have a workflow system which would provide you the view of the digital paper, right? Would provide you the checklists, right? And then you would have some sort of archival mechanism so that you would refer to those documents at a later stage, right? And this led to what I call as the workflow architecture. So typically banks which embarked on such an initiative anywhere between starting from mid-90s till about 2010, the banks ended up having their core transaction system, which was the core banking, obviously. The banks had the functional systems or point applications, in loans, in trade finance, in treasury, and so on. And then to move your work, to move your documents, the workflow applications. This obviously led to architecture which had a lot of subsystems besides the core application, and consequently you had to integrate all these subsystems, and that in itself created a lot of legacy issues, a lot of integration problems. In the last decade or so, however, so from I'm talking about 2010 onwards, there has been a digital revolution, so to say. A large part of this digital revolution is due to the high level of mobile penetration and the mobile data penetration which the world has seen. And this digital revolution gave rise to customers getting used to a very different kind of experience across other industries with which they interacted. So they expected their bank to provide them the similar experience as perhaps they get on the Amazon app while shopping. The Amazon app, for instance, while shopping gives you a service guarantee that this particular item would get delivered by so and so date and so time. Unfortunately, even as we speak today, there are very few banks who can give service guarantee in exact hours and minutes. We do obviously have SLAs, but then not really service guarantees per se. So to adapt to this ever-changing world, the banks also dismantled their operating models and adapted to new ones. So typically you had obviously the centralized back office. Those who were operating on decentralized model went centralized. People went from country-based centralization to regional back offices, or the gambit of back office was increased to give it a shape of shared service center, SSC as we call it. In many cases, some of the mature banks, they went for what we call, what we now know as the BPOs, or the back office outsourcing units, right? So depending on which country the bank was and their own maturity level in terms of technology, you would see banks adopted any of these operating model. And a common pattern in this shift 2010 onwards was also that more and more banks started moving towards a platform-based approach. Platforms like BPM, which help them declutter their technology landscape, their application landscape. A large part of it, I feel, was also due to the fact that BPM itself as a technology, as a tool, matured to a great extent, because BPM tools were then able to address much beyond workflows. They brought in intelligence into it, they brought in analytics into it. They could sort of act as specific applications, right? So this enabled, as I said, much simpler landscape. And in fact, this was also captured, this movement or this pattern was also captured in one of the Gartner studies, wherein it captured that more and more banks were either implementing a platform or were planning to migrate to a platform. And broadly, the banks did it for three key reasons. One, to unclutter their landscape so that the integration overheads are less, so which essentially help them to be more nimble and agile in order to respond to the digital revolution which we earlier talked about, and at the same time be operationally efficient in terms of the total cost it takes to automate any of their process areas. And just to sort of give you a couple of examples, I will be talking about a bank in India which did that, a large private sector bank, and then also I'll take a example from one of the African banks, which happens, I mean, both of these are Newgen customers. So, so we had this large private sector bank which started with a simple digitization journey, and then slowly sort of, as I did covered in some of my previous slides, moved up the value chain and decluttered their application landscape. So this bank started with simple digitization, that is, a cultural shift from paper-based processes to moving to documents. Slowly, they started moving to the central back office model, which I mentioned about, and they automated or more than 100 simple workflows. So they had their core system, they had their work moving and the documents moving on this workflow platform, and then they obviously had various subsystems on which they were doing their work. The workflow automation obviously happened on Newgen. Then somewhere 2011 onwards, they realized that the BPM tool which they had in form of Newgen, it could help them standardize their processes and expand it across various process areas. So that's what the journey they took from 2011 to 2013. They did onboarding, they did trade, etc. 2014-15, they revolutionized the Indian banking industry by launching tab-based account opening. They were the first bank in India to do so. And then they have sort of leveraged the power of Newgen's BPM engine to declutter their landscape in terms of technology. In fact, move some of their the functional areas or functional applications on Newgen. So this is how the landscape has shifted. So as you could see, the pre-BPM transformation, they obviously had for various application areas, either in-house systems or third-party applications. And 2010 onwards, the bank has consistently moved to a strategy of consolidating the landscape, moving on to one common platform, which obviously gives them a head start in terms of being agile, in terms of making any changes. And taking cue from them, obviously a lot of other banks have started doing that in India. The next example I'm going to talk about is from Africa, a Pan-African bank with strong presence across various African markets. So 2010, this bank started their automation journey. Back then, they started as a country level back office automation initiative. So the pilot they did in Senegal with a small account opening process. Later on, they said that once the so-called pilot in Senegal was successful, they realized that this could be expanded across the group to bring about standardization, to help each individual country centralize their back offices to gain efficiencies, as well as roll out more processes like fund transfer, account maintenance and all. So that they undertook between 2011 and 14, expanded the application across various countries. 2015, 2016 is when the bank realized that they could also use the BPM as for some of the point application areas like corporate loan origination, for example. So that got implemented on the application. And recently, 2018, the bank sort of evolved in terms of their operating model, and from a country level centralization, they moved to a regional sort of back office, which gave them better efficiencies naturally. And in between, the bank obviously has developed their own center of excellence on the platform. So they continue to own up the platform and do the development of processes on their own, make the changes on their own. So if you look at both these case studies, you have on one side a bank which started with simple digitization and used the workflow technology and slowly sort of graduated to a point application area. On the other hand, we see a bank how they used the BPM engine or the workflow solution for accommodating their need for different kind of operating models. And this in a way relates to the Lego approach, whereby the Newgen's platform lends itself to build new operating models, to deassemble existing models and recreate new ones. I will take an example of a loan origination process and how different flavors of same process could be achieved using the same stack. So as you could see on the slide, we have defined something as level 1, level 2, level 3 automation. So level 1 could be something as basic as automating just the workflow part of it, where you may want to simply digitize paper and move that paper around, while ensuring that you do get visibility across the entire process. There may not be any integration or subsystem functionalities involved in level 1. You can have level 2, where you obviously get all functionalities of the level 1 plus added functionalities of integration. The complexity of rules could increase. Or as we call as level 3, which is a full-fledged application in itself, where things like credit scoring or covenant monitoring or ratio analysis is done entirely by the application. And the Lego approach I was talking about, that I could start from level 1 and slowly build up to level 3 kind of a model, or I could actually achieve level 3 in one go itself. So that's the kind of flexibility the platform lends itself to, and it is able to offer this flexibility because we have sort of componentized the various underlying tools. So you have a workflow designer which helps you tweak your workflows. You have your form designers which helps you tweak your front-end UI forms. You have your rules engine which could be sort of changed. So any changes in your operating model or processes could be easily accommodated. So this was a brief about, as you know, how we at Newgen have helped banks as they have evolved in terms of their operating models in their back office automation, and how the platform lends itself to various levels of automation possibilities. I'll be happy to take up some questions. Just quickly, I'll talk a bit about where we stand today as Newgen. So we obviously, Newgen is close to 30-year-old organization as of today. We have 540 plus customers across 65 plus countries, and these customers are spread in close to 17 different verticals. The solution is a one unified solution, deployable on cloud, on-prem, or a hybrid approach. And the platform lends itself to address your end-to-end requirements when it comes to content, process, or communication. The flagship products are OmniDocs, which is the enterprise content management application, OmniFlow IBPS, which is the business process and case management application, OmniOMS, which is the customer communication management system. And then we have the new age enablers like digital sensing, which is around the social media side of things, how I could have my processes originate from social media, how I could sort of have more contextual communication from originating from social media, and how I can sort of respond to it in a contextual manner. Robotics process automation, how that can sort of plug into the larger BPM and help address the process as a whole. The enterprise mobility, how I can sort of lend my various mobile needs in a process, whether it is origination or servicing or approvals on mobile, analytics in any processes, how I can sort of make sense of what I have automated, how I can deliver continuous process improvement. And the cloud, obviously, all of these applications are available on cloud, so gives flexible deployment options. Some of the application areas where we work, this is obviously not an exhaustive list. So banking, typically we work across account opening, lending, both retail and commercial side of it, trade finance, and insurance, new business claims, etc. We are more than 3,000 employees strong in terms of revenues, nearing towards $100 million mark with a healthy CAGR of 20%. We are listed organization, so our numbers as such or our financials are anyways available publicly. Our footprint, we have offices across US. India obviously is our global head office, as well as our R&D labs are based here. Besides that, we are present in Dubai, London, US. We've just opened office in Australia. In terms of recognition, we have got consistent recognition from various analysts, and this recognition has been fairly consistent over the last decade or so. We feature in various Gartner Magic Quadrants, like ECM, which is now in fact mature to content services platform Magic Quadrant. We feature there. We feature in the IBPMS Magic Quadrant. Similarly, we feature in various Forrester reports. Just to give you a glimpse of some of our customer base across various industries. So as you would see, though dominated by banking, we do obviously have customers from other sectors. We also have a very healthy and flourishing partner ecosystem. So we work very closely with consulting and advisory partners, system integration partners like Infosys, HCL, L&T, technology partners like SAP, Pinnacle, Fiserv. The system, as I said, is cloud ready, has been deployed on AWS, Azure clouds. We also have a very healthy network of value-added resellers and implementation partners across various markets and across various regions. So that was a quick brief from my side. Darpan, over to you.
Thank you, Bindesh, for these valuable insights. Now I will invite over Bhumi to share his transformation journey with us.
Darpan, perhaps you can unmute Bhumi.
Yes, so hi everyone. So Bhumi will start just in a minute. He's having some technical problem. Just for a while.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Bhumi, you can go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. So good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're hearing us from. So my name is Bhumi Olufeko. I work with Service Assurance. I work with Union Bank with the Service Assurance team, responsible for managing, improving the bank processes, and also looking at the whole service strategy for the bank. So I'll just kind of start from leverage on what Bindesh has been saying since. If you look at this bank, Union Bank is about a 100-years-old bank, and we've gone through a roller coaster in terms of our journey. Sometimes in 2009, there was an intervention by the Central Bank of Nigeria in Union Bank, and which led to us having new owners and new investors in the bank, and that's when the transformation journey actually started. At that time, we looked at and asked ourselves, what is the future of the global banking? People were talking about digital, people were talking about self-service, people were talking about leveraging various emerging technology at that time. But we realized that we needed to have a baseline, we needed to build a foundation on which we can eventually tap into all that changes that is going to come about, and then be able to meet the customer's expectation. As you know, this is a evolving thing in terms of expectations are always changing, and as an organization, you need to keep ahead of customers' expectation. So at that time, this was just a big picture for the bank. We had low capacity utilization, inefficient processes, high volume of complaints. There were a lot of poor customer experience, which definitely was as a result of the processes and how at that time we were serving our customers. So I mean, the journey for the bank, like I said, started with the capitalization of the bank, and then putting in place a strategic, having a strategic map for the organization. And then in 2015, actually the transformation itself in terms of the people, the environment, all started in 2013. By 2015, we had gotten to a state where we said, okay, we needed to re-energize our brand. We're talking about being a simpler and smarter bank, and that means that we must have very efficient process as we go along. So we started our journey, our process journey, in terms of looking at our business process and asking ourselves, how do we deliver our service to our customers? First, we had to start from level. We also had a plan. We called it level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4 processes at that time. Level 1 for us was clear documentation of our processes, standardization across our branches. At that time, we had over 300 branches scattered across Nigeria. Clearly defined processes, clearly defined KPIs output in line with customers' expectation, understanding what the voice of the customer is, ensuring that we're building processes that are meeting those expectations. And these were purely manual processes, ensuring that everybody knew what they had to do, building process matrix and all that, a responsibility matrix. The next level for us was to say, okay, how do we now start to improve this process, automate the process, where we looked at a lot of manual activities that we had and said, okay, how do we automate this process across? And then one of the first things we did then was to embark on our centralization journey. Now, the centralization journey was as a result of us looking at how utilization level across the bank. We wanted to do more with less. We wanted to be able to, because we knew that we're going to be growing our customer base, we didn't think it was right for us to keep growing our costs as the volume or number of customers that we had was increasing on the daily basis. So we need to look for a smarter, centralized process, and that's where the whole shared service concept started from. We just didn't take the existing process and say, look, let's centralize it the way it was. We had to see how we're going to improve on it. So, and then we started applying the Six Sigma methodology in terms of clearly identifying the waste that we had within our processes, identifying the non-value adding activities, taking them out, and building a more efficient process before we now went ahead to automate. Because what we realized is that if you automate a bad process the way it is, you still get an output that customers will not be happy with. So the whole BPM approach was just to design the process the way it is after the improvement has been done, look for deploy those processes, go through a phase of testing, proper testing of those processes to ensure that the outputs that we're getting out of this are in line with our own strategic objectives. So we use the BPM approach, having a design phase, having a testing phase, execution phase in terms of having proper KPIs for those outputs and ensuring that they are aligning. So as the outputs are doing well, we have a measurement strategy in place to ensure that whatever it is that's coming out of those, the output of those processes are continuously meeting customers' expectations. And then when we have a gap, we can understand what the root cause of it by going through the whole phase of going back through those old phases and seeing how we can further improve, take out the manual activities, automate, and then generate output all over again. We had to make this an enterprise thing in terms of getting everybody involved from top management to bottom. So there was a lot of collaboration with the risk side, process owner, analyzing, getting input from customers, so that all these things will go straight into the process in such a way that you can be sure that the business objectives have been met, because at the end of the day, we're here to service the customers, and then whatever the output of our process is what our customers are buying. But first, we had to look for a partner to do this with. So there was a lot of market research in terms of the best workflow for us in this market today. Who do we engage with? Who do we partner with? Who has done stuff like this before? I mean, in terms of the flexibility, because you need to look for a system that is very agile, a system that you can, because customers' needs and are always changing, and the pace at which they're changing, you need to be able to also make changes to your application so that the outputs are, like I said, are always meeting customers' expectations. And we went through a proper vendor selection process before we eventually ended up with Newgen, and then at that time OmniFlow, before we further upgraded to IBPS. So that's when we started the centralization project, and then we started then with account opening. We centralized account opening. At that time, we were doing about, initially when we started, maybe about 400 accounts on a daily basis. But by the time we started, we started with the level 1 process where we automated on the workflow, and then we went and updated on the third-party application. And then within a few months, we integrated the workflow with the banking application. And then we had serious improvement in terms of the efficiency. We probably had about, initially we had about 70 people opening about 400 accounts. By the time we moved to a level 2 process, we had about 30 people opening close to about 2,000 accounts on a daily basis. So eventually we moved all other processes onto the platform. We had the maintenance, we had funds transfer, dispute resolution, debit card, loan, all that was moved onto the central, to the CPC. And one of the things we quickly discovered was that our unit processing costs started to go down. So as an organization, we track our cost to serve for each of our processes. And then as we went into that centralization, we realized that we were doing more with less. So even though the number of customers that we're serving and we're reaching out towards increasing on a monthly basis, the cost of processing those transactions remained stable, and in some cases was going down. And then these are some of the benefits that came out of them. Initially, we're opening accounts in 3 to 4, 5, and sometimes as much as 7 days, because we had various applications. We had the banking application, we had the signature application. We had various applications that we had to do things on different applications. But now we had one central application where everything was done. We could, within a few hours, 90%, 95% at that time of our accounts were open under 24 hours. And today they are now open in less than an hour, depending on the volume coming out of there. Our cards, we were able to do cards in 30 minutes. Retail loan process dropped to less than 3 minutes. Generally, on all fronts, we were able to do more transactions with less manpower or less resources. So also from a growth perspective, today we have over 2 million active mobile customers from about 11,000 we had in 2012. We have about 700,000 online banking customers. We run about 200,000 account maintenance coming out of that centralized process with just a few people, because those processes are automated. And as we were going on, we were further improving on the process depending on feedback from customers, taking out activities within. We just unplug an activity, and then the time becomes shorter, and then the efficiency goes up. And then we can see it in the output in terms of our NPS and CSAT that we're tracking. If you look at 2018 compared to 2019, and I didn't provide the data, is not here, but consistently from 2014, 2015, the volume started to, our NPS number started to go up. Our customer satisfaction index started going up. Last year, 2018, for the first time, we were ranked as top 10 in the KPMG customer satisfaction rating. We're actually number 8. Next level for us was now to say, how do we combine these BPMs with and also an emerging technology at this time, the robotic process automation. If you look at a lot of the activities, there were a combination of manual and system activity that was delivering the output. And then we said to ourselves, how do we further reduce the manual activity by using robots? In 2018, we were the first in this industry to launch RPA for ATM reconciliation. And then the cost saving to the organization was quite huge. The impact on customer experience was fantastic. We became #1 bank in Northern Us in terms of our ATM became the preferred ATM in this industry, because customers know that even if they do a transaction on ATM and there's a failure, the speed at which those transactions will be passed into their account was quite commendable. So we further went ahead to say, okay, what other processes can we? And then for some of the processes that I've highlighted in the earlier slides, we're now using RPA in combination of the workflows to further improve the efficiency and reduce our cost to serve, which is our unit processing costs. And then since if you look at the CSAT for those processes that we're currently using RPA, you can also see that the trend is also on the upward movement. Next level for us as we deepen our BPM, RPA, deepen our BPM and RPA, is also to look at the digital space and how do we further, because now we have the foundation on which we can grow. We have a BPM, we have a workflow solution, we have an RPA supporting it. The next thing is to see how do we transfer some of these activities to the customer in terms of having those self-service, having it on their mobile application, being able to start open account from your mobile, and then it flows into our BPM solution, and then it is processed back end or where some of them go straight through, or for some of them, we use the RPA to complete the transaction. And then that's the next phase we are in now. So we are identifying those critical processes, those ones that have major impact on customer experience or customer journey with us, and prioritizing them on the digital digital map. This is just some of the recognitions that we've had in the last couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years, in terms of the fastest growing retail bank in the country, innovation award around some of the things that we've done with BPM and RP. So I think I just stop there. If you have any questions, I can take them now.
Thank you, Bhumi, for sharing Union Bank's transformation journey. Now we'll have the Q&A session. And I'll be asking the questions. The first question of the day is for you, Bhumi. The question is, having implemented both BPM and RPA, what are your thoughts on the two technologies? Can RPA on its own solve all the problems, or BPM is also required?
Well, you need both of them to work together. From my own experience, from what I've seen, you need both of them to work together, because in some of the RPA process, we have two types of RPA process. We have the attended and unattended. For unattended means that from beginning to end, you're asking the robot to do everything. But for unattended, which to a large extent constitute a large part of our business processes, you need a combination of manual and system activities to be able to conclude on those transactions. And then in most cases, the handshake between the human and the robot normally happens through a BPM platform. So that's why I think that to a large extent, you will need both of them to be able to deliver the most efficient process.
Okay. Another next question is for you, Bindesh. This is, what are the different implementation models offered by Newgen?
All right. So Newgen offers different kind of implement. So we do have, as I mentioned, in various countries, local or regional partners who can implement our solutions and support them. We also have some of the global system integrators, some of which I covered in my presentation as well, who have practices around Newgen systems, and they sort of also deliver these implementations of Newgen systems. We also provide trainings to our customers as well as partners, so that if, let's say, a customer wants to implement the system themselves or roll out processes themselves, they can do so. And finally, we do also have a professional services team within Newgen. So in case a client feels that the process is very complex, which perhaps needs Newgen's intervention, so Newgen could also get involved in implementation through our professional services team. So it could be either of the options I've shared, or a combination of the options as well.
Thank you. Our next question is to you, Bhumi. How important are the components of scanning and document management for a back office automation process?
Can you say that again?
How important are the components of scanning and document management for a bank's back office processes?
Okay, it is important because in this time you want to, when everybody's talking about digitization of your processes, the ability to take physical documents into your workflow, you will need that scanning option. And one of the things that we're doing as we go into the new year is the combination of RPA, BPM, and then also the ICR technology, where we're able to convert, scan documents, and extract information out of it. So from a document management perspective, from a digitization perspective, it is important to have a good back office scanning solution.
Okay. Another question is again for you, Bhumi, that what is your recommended approach to organizations looking to embark on a similar initiative?
Well, your strategy must be clearly aligned. I mean, from top to bottom, people must understand what you want to do. Your customer journey or your customer experience strategy must be clearly articulated in such a way, because at the end of the day, your processes are vehicle for delivering services to your customers. So when your customers say your services are bad, they're actually saying your processes are bad. So if you want to start on the journey, first you must understand what your customers want. What segment of customers are you serving? What's your business strategy? Who are you trying to acquire? Who are you trying to win? What competitive advantage you want to take into the market? So those are the things that will help you to put together a strategy in terms of now looking at your journey. For us, we wanted to play in the retail space, and we asked ourselves, what is important to the retail customer? What are the segments of the retail customers that we have to pay? What are their challenges? What exactly is it that they want? So we kind of align the voice of the customer with the voice of our process. So, and that is what we measure on a daily basis, where the deviation is coming out from. If there's a deviation between our voice of the process and voice of the customer, then we know that we need to make a change. As we also, because working in this industry, that the margins are thinning out. You also want to be efficient. You want to give the best possible service to your customer with the least possible costs. So those are some of the things that must be a driving factor for you as you put together a strategy for embarking on such a journey. But like I said, it has to do with your organization or business strategy and the customers that you're planning to capture within that market.
Okay, great. Our next question is for you, Bindesh, that what are the training options available for customers who intend to develop internal capacity around BPM?
So, as I did indicate in my previous answer as well, we do provide, we have sort of every quarter boot camp in our India labs, which is open to our customers as well as to our partners. Whereby, so this is a 2 to 3 week program where people get trained on sort of how to use the tool to develop various kind of processes, how to use the underlying content management system, and to sort of expand that in an enterprise. So usually that is a good training to start with, and typically enables people to sort of take up the process automation initiative. Besides that, there are obviously options of creating customized training programs for customers. So those can be sort of discussed and worked upon based on a requirement, of a particular customer.
Okay, great. Our next question is for you, Bhumi. It is, what were the main reasons for choosing Newgen as a partner? What kind of capacity the bank has developed internally on Newgen BPM?
Okay, so at the time we chose Newgen, we were looking for a partner that would help us in our BPM journey, but also had local knowledge. So I think at that time Newgen had implemented in a bank in Nigeria, yes. So it was easy for us to reference and see what they've done so far and know that, okay, this is something that we can develop on. As we went along the journey, we've also kind of developed in-house capability for us to be able to do stuff on our own. So basic changes, building workflows, especially now that we are moved to IBPS, we now be able to build workflows and support to a large extent some of the changes that we want to make on the system.
Okay, thank you. And since we are running out of time now, so our last question of the day is for you, Bindesh. Can Newgen document management system be licensed independent of BPM solution? And can you recommend some pointers for an organization who are looking to implement document management system?
All right. So yes, Newgen's document management system can be licensed independently. In fact, one of the world's largest implementation of DMS system is on Newgen, and that's where the system is running standalone. And so are many other implementations where the system has been deployed on a standalone basis. So yes, Newgen's DMS can be licensed independently. As far as pointers on document management systems are concerned, see, there would obviously be some standard features. Would be able to scan, store, retrieve documents. Okay, I would say that the differentiating factors in DMS becomes the scale of an application, because when you're talking about converting paper into image and then sort of handling of those images at an enterprise level, we are talking about millions and billions of images. So how scalable the system is in terms of handling volumes is an important criteria. Second important criteria should be the flexibility of the system to be deployed on a low cost technology architecture. So in terms of application server or database servers, etc., can the system be deployed on an open source kind of a stack? So those are perhaps some key pointers. Somebody looking at DMS implementations.
Okay, thank you, Bindesh. Thank you, Bhumi and Bindesh, for your valuable insights on views of BPM for banking. Thank you for the entire audience for your valuable time and tremendous response. We shall be sending across the presentation and the transcript for all the questions to you. Goodbye and have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.